Here and we are live. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Welcome back. This is number five. Oh, my goodness. Number five of six presentations we are doing today on behalf of Roots Tech, sponsored by Family Search, in celebration of Juneteenth. We are providing today free online classes that are focused on African American genealogy that have been taught by nationally known research experts. Like I said, we've had six classes so far. We've had four. We are about to talk about the Lineage Society dedicated to the descendants of enslaved Africans called Sons and Daughters of the United States Middle Passage. I've got here my two lovely friends that'll be joining me. I'll introduce them in a second. But want to make sure you know as you're watching this, a couple of things. One, you can ask questions along the way, make comments, whatever you have to say, please do it during this presentation. This presentation is being broadcast live, but it is recorded, and so you'll be able to watch it afterwards. This, like I said, is in honor of Juneteenth, where we at Family Search and Roots Tech truly value the diversity and inclusion of all people, and we are pleased to honor the strength, resilience, and triumphs of African Americans and the community throughout history by hosting this event today. We want to make sure, though, that you're aware that there are more than just today's resources available to you. If you want to learn more about your African American heritage and family history, you can go to rootstech.org. Rootstech.org has been our annual family history conference that we've held in Salt Lake for many years, but now we've gone virtual the last few years with the COVID pandemic and provided a lot of content that we are featuring and focusing on for the month of June. So don't just go today, but go every day, and not just June. You can go any day of the year and go to rootstech.org, create your own account, create your playlist. Come back and watch and learn more about getting started with your African American genealogy, about leveraging DNA testing for helping you connect with ancestors, for accessing lesser known resources, for just tips and techniques that are going to advance and help you make joyful family history discoveries. We want you to come to rootstech.org. We want you to come back. We want you to participate today in today's event. I've been talking, but I didn't even say my name. I'm Tom Reed. I am with Family Search. I've been with Family Search a whopping 10 years. I'm dedicated as a program manager for African Heritage Initiatives in North America. I also have the distinguished honor of working with people like Evelyn McDowell and like Ruth Hunt as part of my outreach to genealogical societies that are focused on African American genealogy. And so today I am so pleased to introduce you to these two ladies. Ruth was having some trouble getting on. She was on for a second. I hope that she's going to be able to join us, come back. But let me introduce who you are seeing on your screen right now. This is Dr. Evelyn Aniton McDowell. She currently serves as the founder and chairperson of the board of directors of the Sons and Daughters of the United States Middle Passage. Dr. McDowell is an associate professor of accountancy at Rider University and co-chair of Rider's History of Slavery Task Force. She has been researching her own family tree for over 25 years, so she's only 26 years old and has helped many others do the same. Started when she was young, and she had found, interesting enough, 37 enslaved direct ancestors on her family tree. And she's going to tell you a lot more about what that means and about the organization that she represents. So everyone, I know she can't hear you clap because you all are on, Facebook and YouTube and everywhere else watching this, but put your hands together for Dr. Evelyn McDowell. And then when Ruth comes on, I'll introduce her as well. So Evelyn.
Yes.
Welcome.
Hey, so happy to be here, Tom. So happy to see you. So happy to be here to talk with all of the listeners, and just great to be here today. And I'm honored that you would ask me to be here. So thank you.
Of course. So I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to the audience. I know I read your
Yeah.
bio,
Mm-hmm.
but who is Evelyn Aniton McDowell?
I am a mother, a grandmother. I am a
Wait,
descendant.
your 26-year-old grandmother? No, I'm just
I
kidding.
know it's amazing. It's amazing. And I've been married for 40 years. How did
Wow.
this happen? You know?
How,
But yeah, that's who I am. And I'm a teacher, I'm an educator. I am passionate about my ancestry. I'm passionate about um being a descendant of enslaved people. And I want other people who are descendants to connect themselves to these amazing individuals. So I'm really, really happy to be here to talk to you about sons and daughters.
please tell us more about the society that you founded. What was it? 8 years ago? Nine, 10? Wait,
Uh,
10 years
it's
ago
been well, we founded the organization. It was started in 2013,
now? Okay.
and we accepted our first applications in 2016.
Okay.
So in 2 years, it'll be 10 years since we started accepting applications. But it's a lineage society for people who are descendant of enslaved people in the United States.
Mhm,
Specifically, we're looking at that area of the world. That's where
mhm,
we focus on.
mhm.
And you have to be 18 years or older. However, we're working on probably very soon. We'll be accepting children into the organization, and we're all together as one big family. And there she is.
Sorry, I'm in the
Great.
library. Sorry.
Well, but you're here.
Yeah,
It's so
you're
good
here.
to have you here.
We're so happy to
We
have you.
how about I switch and go ahead and introduce Ruth while we got
Okay,
her.
go
Hopefully
right ahead.
connection is stable. But for the people who don't know, Ruth, you are where are you joining us from today? Are you in New York?
I am in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. I am
Oh,
in
North
the
Carolina.
that my grandfather was born.
Wow. Well, let me tell you a little bit about
So
Ruth
I'm
and what's taking you to North Carolina. Let's see. So Ruth is a seasoned family historian and genealogist. One of her greatest accomplishments was finding her long lost World War II half brother in England. Amazing. Ruth's a charter member of the National Society of the Sons and Daughters of the United States Middle Passage, and she is a member of the Afro American Historical and Genealogical Society, OGS, and a member of the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution. She was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award from the United States Department of Defense for her work with veterans. You do some great work, Ruth, and obviously, in addition to discovering your ancestors and being in North Carolina to look at your folks, you do so much to help this community. And so I'm just so grateful that you could join us today. So I asked Evelyn this question at the beginning, though. Who is Ruth? Tell me the essence of Ruth Hunt and this passion for genealogy. How did this come about for you?
well, my father was a great storyteller, and he always told us stories. I'm not going to say how old I am, but it wasn't before television, but it was my father was from an era that they told stories and they listened to radio. And so when we were young, we would sit and he would tell us these stories. And that's how I knew about my brother who was in England, because he told these stories. So, and I vowed that I was going to find my father's World War II son when he told me the story, because he was so heartbroken. After I saw Roots and I saw the work that Alex Haley did, I said, oh, I need to do this. It was just so fascinating to me. And so, I do many things. I wear many hats in terms of my career and the things I've done in my career. But for me, and what Juneteenth means to me, is that our people were separated during slavery. And ever since I watched Roots, it was my desire to bring the family back together again. So why am I in Wilkes County, North Carolina? Because that's where my great grandfather, who was enslaved here. And so the history is fragmented, and I really don't have the history, but I'm looking for my great grandfather's brothers who were taken to Texas with the slaveholders' sons. And so I just feel that there's something incomplete when we don't know who we are, where our people are. So if it's one person missing, and I come from a large family of 8 children, we had to have our meals together. We had to celebrate the holidays together. If one was missing, then you felt the pain or the energy loss of one being missing. So it's always like we have to bring the family together. We have the blanks, or we have to fill in the people who we know are a part of our family.
Mm-hmm. I've
So
heard it.
that's why I do what I do. I just think that we need to find those ancestors that were separated.
Yeah, I've heard it said, no empty seats at the table,
Did
right?
you have a
This
question?
table is big, and we're trying to make sure that we put everyone
Yeah,
in their
yeah,
place, even though they might have been fragmented, fractured, taken. We have
yes.
a woman. One of the things that had come in from online is American lady from YouTube asks, "What's an enslaved African?" She says, "My family were American chattel slaves." So Evelyn, what do you think that means? Like, how would you answer American lady? What's an enslaved African if she's considered her family were American chattel slaves?
An enslaved African, it's a general term, but we're specifically talking that, and I think American Lady is talking. We're talking about the same people, the people who are descendants of enslaved African that were enslaved in this country, in the United States, and its colonial period as well. So we're probably talking about the same people, but just
Mhm.
the name is just a little different.
Well, and you have this society, so um, you use in the term in the name of your society, it's Sons and Daughters of the United States Middle Passage.
Right.
What does that mean, the Middle Passage? What is
Well,
that?
I'm glad you asked. It's a great question. So the Middle Passage is that area between the United States, the Caribbean, Europe, and in that area, and of course Africa. And so there was this triangular, um, of getting the goods to ship to different places and exchange goods for people, and then go back around in that same area. So we call that area this triangular area where trade of human bodies for goods, the Middle Passage. And
Hmm.
so we're specifically looking at the United States. So if eventually, hopefully, maybe there'll be other places that will have. It'll be of the Jamaican Middle Passage, or that part of the area. Could
Hmm.
be Mexico, and
Hmm.
even South America.
Hmm.
So we're specifically focusing on this area, but we hope that other people may take a little bit from what we're doing and do the same as well.
Hmm. Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Well, and that the transatlantic slave trade is kind of that triangular trade that you talked about. Was so impactful with the 12.5 million people who were brought to the New World, with about Henry Louis Gates says 300,000 or 400,000, some say, that were brought to the United States directly. The rest were brought to the Caribbean or to Brazil. Brazil was the largest importer of enslaved laborers or enslaved Africans during that time of the transatlantic slave trade. And so your organization, Sons and Daughters of the U.S. Middle Passage, is focused on those who came to the United States, and as descendants, being the sons and daughters of those who came and who
Absolutely.
persevered. Who are some of, I mean, you've traced 37 of your enslaved ancestors, and Ruth, I don't know how many you have, but who are some of your honored ancestors? Those, Ruth, that you talked about your what is it, your 3 times great grandfather there in
Yeah.
Wilkes, North Carolina. But who are some of your honored ancestors? Those you pay tribute to.
Well, I pay tribute to Richard Lewis out of Glade Springs, Virginia, and Elizabeth Sheldon and they were born in the 1830s. And thank God I have, Bibles that had the information in it, and it allowed me to go to those towns and actually research and get the documentation on my great great grandfather. I've done many talks about him because I honor him that through all of slavery that they were resilient enough to survive the difficulty of slavery, and having the stories of what they had to go through back in that time period. And to think that he was one of the first people of color to vote after the Civil War, and to be able to find that documentation, to be able to go to the Library of Virginia and find the habitating records that talk or speaks to who his slaveholder was. So we had oral history that talked about his slaveholder was his father, but to not really know that until you found a cohabitating record that has that actually listed, and to identify it, and then to be able to trace not just my enslaved ancestor, but then also start to trace the Clark family back to Scotland. So it's just fascinating, the different layers, to really find out who you are, because we're not just a one ethnic group. So I'm just fascinated in trying to pull together, when I do my DNA, to see the different ethnicities and to be able to actually locate and find and connect the names and the ancestors that go along with that. My other ancestor was in Tennessee. He had 4 children by his enslaver's daughter in the 1830s, 1836, 1837. The Chancellor family. I'm a daughter of the American Revolution based on my research with the Chancellor family. So I definitely praise and honor those people who had to, my ancestors who had to withstand that. That
you were kind enough to send me this flyer from a presentation you did, obviously, in February.
Yeah.
Who are some of the people on this, or were any of the ones you mentioned?
Okay, so the first one in the upper left corner, that is Richard Lewis. He was mulatto. His mother was Cherokee. I find the Cherokees down in that Southwest Virginia, and next to him is his wife, my great great grandmother, Elizabeth Selden. They got married. They listed on the cohabitating records, 1860. And then to go to the next person, that's my grandfather, who was born in Glade Springs, Virginia in 1907. And no, is my aunt. My mom used to call her Aunt Pokey. But when I got the Bible, her name was Pocahontas. Her name was written as Pocahontas. And next to, and so we knew that they were Cherokee descent, but to actually know that her name was Pocahontas, my Aunt Gay, my Aunt Callie, those names were just different, from the regular English names. And then next to her is her mother. She died at childbirth. Her name is Emma Mitchell, and she married my great grandfather next to her, which is Wyndham Clark.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your family with us.
Sure.
And tell them a little bit more about them. Evelyn, I want to kind of switch gears and let you talk about kind of the society, the mission of your society, why societies are important in the first place. So I'm going to switch over and hopefully be able to present here for everyone that they can see the screen here. And let me pull this up for you.
Right.
I'm going to go back. Let's start from the beginning. You take me through, and we'll kind of go through the whole thing here. So.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna go. If you go to that next slide, a couple more. Are you gonna get to the mission of the organization?
Oh, please.
There you did. Okay. Yeah. So, the first C is to connect ourselves to our enslaved ancestors and to each other, which it's a big part. Then we want to commemorate the memory of our enslaved ancestors. And lastly, we go about trying to educate as many people as possible about the American chattel slavery system and its impact on today's society. So every year we have an annual conference where we actually do all three of those.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I can talk about that a little later, but we started the organization because, you know, Americans, this American slavery was it's very unique because what happened to one person on a plantation, on one plantation, on the very next plantation could be completely different.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And so we actually know very, very little about American slavery, American chattel slavery. So who better to help us understand this history other than people who are descendant of those individuals who were enslaved? So what we're trying to do is provide a place that these descendants can all work together to get the story of our ancestors out there, and let everybody know how amazing they were and what they went through to give us all life, all of us. I mean, so many people in the world, in the entire world, were dependent on the labor of these enslaved people, and they
Mm-hmm.
were integral to world history. So so we wanted to provide a place where all these descendants can come together and work to get all three of those in our mission, to work to get this mission accomplished. So that's why we started it. This history is very important. I kind of already mentioned that history being so important. We really know nothing about this history right now. So it is, if it wasn't for what our enslaved ancestors were forced to do, we couldn't even recognize the United States. I mean, it is their labor that propelled us to the superpower that we are today. We go back and just understand what King Cotton was all about. It was, literally 10 million people were enslaved in this country, and for them to, can you imagine, all of that labor and all of what they produced? It didn't go to them; it went to the enslavers, and it went to better the coffers of our country and the world. Actually, even all of the world um, benefited from what they went through. And so I talked a little bit about the eligibility. You can move on to the next slide. I
But
already mentioned it.
Please, please, Ruth,
I
jump
just
in.
wanted to add something to that. I think that it's important that we say that we help build the country. I think it's very important to look at, even when you don't know, if you do your research or you look at the census records, let's just look at what did our ancestors do, because their jobs were very integral, just like what you said, Ellen. But we don't look at it like that, and we have to praise them for their contributions, and we can actually what exactly did they do? And those things are important to make the whole work. So I just wanted to bring that because that's what we honor, their contributions. But if we do the research, we can say what they did. They were wheelwrights. They were masons. They built the country. I went to another part of Marion, Virginia. The black folks, they actually built the buildings out of bricks. So I mean, I don't want to go into your presentation, but I want to bring
No,
that out. It's important.
that's excellent. And you can look at the White House.
Yes.
The
Yes.
we so much of the South. If you look at the University of Virginia, I think that's the correct term. What Thomas Jefferson founded. I mean, a lot of these schools, a lot of what you see in the South were made by the hands of enslaved people.
The
So
North, the North also, the North as well,
and the
Evelyn.
North,
Mm-hmm.
yes, absolutely. So much of what you see. So we talked a little bit about. You can move on to the next slide about the eligibility. Even our eligibility encompasses people who were enslaved by the five tribes. So we're talking about a very broad definition of slavery, and we welcome anyone who were descendant from those people of African descent, um, who were enslaved. So you can move on. You can see
So,
the
and the
fees are
question,
very Very reasonable, huh? $65, and our annual fee is just $25.
There was one question that came in
Oh, mhm.
from Roots Tech. It was from Vicky Cook. She asked, in order to join your society, how many enslaved ancestors need to be documented on your application?
You only need one, but many of us, have many. I mean, I'm working on documenting all 37, but so far I've got 4 ancestors and documented. But you can just come in with just one.
Okay.
Most of our members have just one.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
We join with one, but we have many. So like my great father, he was enslaved, so was his wife. So that's two right there. So you can come in one, but you have many more if you just
Yes.
look at it.
And we call those supplementals. Once you get in, you can keep adding more and more and more. We want you to have more and more and more. So you can actually, we have a place on our ribbon for you to add more people to it. It's actually a very long ribbon because we expect most people like me can 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 document that their connection to enslaved people. So you join it. Why should you join it? Well, I tell you, if you have a dedication, if you're dedicated like Ruth and I am to this mission, you need to join because we need your help. There's so much work to do, so much work to do. So many, every community needs someone who's dedicated to this mission, to helping all of us understand who these enslaved people were. What did they go through? What contributions did they make? So you gain experience, you meet the best people. I mean, you just, it is, it's one of the reasons I get up in the morning. I mean, it's just, you get a chance to honor your ancestor. You connect to them. There are so many reasons why you should do it. The next slide is to me the best reason, because you get to meet these awesome people.
People.
And you'll see Tom on this list. I'm sure Ruth is in here somewhere. The members, our members are passionate. They have done the work. Another part of our mission is connecting ourselves to each other. Many of us are finding out that we're all cousins. you know we're doing what Ruth mentioned earlier about connecting our families together. So many of our ancestors had their families broken apart.
Yeah.
So now we are able to build those families back again. It's a very, very rewarding part of joining the organization, right,
And then,
Ruth?
and how many people do you meet and you say that's my cousin, or that's
Yeah.
my cousin on my mother's side, but how is she a cousin? Just to be able to dissect it and figure out how are we related to one another. And years ago, you used to, when you met someone new, your grandfather would say, "And so, who are your people?" You got to make sure who your people are, that you're not really related. So you couldn't get married unless you know who the people are, where they come from.
Right. So,
Yep. Amazing people. And we
so
honor too. We have, as a part of our conference, we honor people who write, and who write books, papers, poetry, whatever. If it's dedicated to slavery, we honor those people.
Yeah.
We honor people who are committed to this work. Every year we've given out, boy, I don't know, we might be up to, at least maybe close to 50-60 people over the past 7 years that we've honored for doing this work. And two people are on this call that we've honored. And we want to encourage more people to actually do the work. um
I've got
we
a question. I'm going to go back to
okay, go ahead.
quick.
Mhm.
because I think it's very interesting and telling about the organization that you've talked about, and I've been participating in all your
All of them.
conferences, right?
Yes.
And have been just so blown away by the speakers and authors and everyone that contributes to this community. Like you said, it is a great thing about the people. But there you have a symbol, and I'm going to go back a few slides to
Okay.
the sons and daughters symbol that's
Okay.
here. Can you describe what this symbol is and what it means and why Sons and
Yes.
Daughters of the U.S. Middle Passage uses this symbol to as a representation of the organization?
Oh boy. Yes, this is a very interesting story. Well, the inside there's a it's we have a picture of a bird. The bird is called a Sankofa bird. And Sankofa bird is from the Akan Ghana region, where it's a bird that flies forward. It's a mythical bird that flies forward while he's looking back. And it's about knowledge, knowledge of yourself, knowledge of you going back, and you're connecting yourself. You're never forgetting what you who you're connected to. You're never forgetting the knowledge that you have, and so
Mm-hmm.
that is the bird. I actually found out the bird. We can. I don't know. We have time to go into it, but I have to. Amy. I always get her name.
Period. Period.
Serious.
Uh-huh.
Yes. So I was at a session. Well, I mean, I can't. I don't know how to. It was from the Church of Latter-day Saints, and I was at a talk there,
Mm-hmm.
and Amy was there, and she talked about how the symbol, and I had never heard of it, but we were just trying to figure out, putting the pieces together for Sons and Daughters, and she brought up the symbol. Anyway, it's a long story, but it's interesting how all the pieces came together. The bird is holding and representing the contributions to our to this society. Of course, the knowledge, the King Cotton, and how important cotton was to our society. It also the bird is also holding a sugar cane, which is another very important crop that made the United States a very, very powerful country.
Mm-hmm.
It's The bird is holding a sword, and that sword represents all of the wars that we've been in. The American Revolution, War of 1812, all of the wars that the Descendants have participated in. World War I, all the military wars that it has that we all have contributed to, and
Mm-hmm.
it also is holding a hammer, and that hammer represents the building and how we've um, contributed through the building of this country. So that's in general what all of the pieces represent. Also on the bird's back are two flags. The African diaspora flag, the red, black, and green, as well as the United States of America, because because of our contribution to this country, and that if you look at the DNA of most of us, and if you go back and look at our lineage, we
Mm-hmm.
are probably as American as anybody could ever
Mm-hmm.
be,
Right.
because we are a mixture of Europeans, Africans, of course, and indigenous people. Many of us have all three of those in our DNA, in our family
Wow.
trees. So
Wow.
we are very, very much American, and of course our ancestors are of African descent. So that's what the symbol represents.
Well, and thank you for taking the time. And I'm trying to remember who actually asked that question. I think um,
Uh,
I forgot who asked it. I apologize for not recognizing you on this, but we got a couple more questions. I want to interject.
Nina Davis. Nina
Oh,
Davis.
thank you, Nina Davis. So there's a question from Facebook from Natasha Carson. She says, "Can you help those of us that can't get that far back? She's only heard stories of enslavement, but no actual documentation yet. How can the organization help those who want to be able to prove that they have this connection to their enslaved ancestors?
Well, you need to come to our conference if you can. Our conferences normally are very, very reasonable. The last 2 years they've been free, and at our conference we talk about how you can actually do this work and connect to your enslaved ancestors. We talk about it's you basically, I'm sure you probably, if you've been on this call all day, you probably heard that the very first thing you got to do, if you haven't done it and you don't know how to do it, is to talk to the
Oldest.
oldest people in your family. Yes, get them on videotape. Ask them for names, places, and dates for
Mm-hmm.
all the people that they remember, and you want to gather all of that information, and then systematically go back and get documentation to support all of that information, connecting yourself to the next generation, and eventually you will be
Yeah,
able to go back to a place. And you also want to do family group sheets, right? You want to also
Mm-hmm.
remember
that's
that
important.
yeah, very important. You want to document who the brothers and sisters are of that family, the mother and all of the children for each person. And Tom is
Because
going through and okay, go ahead, Ruth.
I was just going to
Mhm.
show the slides as you talk about it, kind of in
yeah,
Yes.
terms of your
because
application and
because
showing.
because sometimes you'll get stuck, but in your line, if you go off and get one of your uncle's lines and go down that line, or you find a death certificate that might have the great grandmother on another relative, but not direct on your line. It's just that the more research you do and the more you, what they call the fan base, your family, you spread out. I think also it's very important with family search. If you start your tree on family search, I mean I can't praise enough for Roots Tech. That platform has helped me connect with people that took me back. And once you sort of, like I was speaking about, I traced all my lineage. And when I was on Roots Tech about 2 years ago, and I was able to 1,300 just by putting the relatives that connect within that program that you do for Roots Tech. It's phenomenal.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So, just try to use all of the tools that were demonstrated to you today, and that will help you go back another generation. And joining lineage organizations, they have so much support, and certainly I can't praise sons and daughters enough, because many of us, because of the lack of being able to read and write, or being forbidden to read and write, you certainly get to the 1870s. And so that being the focal point of praising and
Mm-hmm.
honoring your enslaved ancestors, just about everyone can get back there if you just start with yourself and go back.
So you make a good distinction. There's a question actually by Curtis from YouTube who said, "What about those who were free by 1860? Do you still?" And then there's kind of a follow-up question by Belinda who said, "Must I know the name of the enslaved ancestors slaveholders to join the Sons and Daughters of the United States Middle Passage?" She has documents to show the ancestor was born during slavery, but no slaveholder name. So that, I think those two questions kind of piggyback on each other, because someone could be emancipated prior to the end, to emancipation and the Emancipation Proclamation and the end of the Civil War. Do
Right.
you consider those people eligible for, adoption or acceptance into the society? And do you have to have that name of that slaveholder and really that documentation that they truly were enslaved to be a member of the society? And we'll kind of wrap up here. With this conversation going good, so let's answer this question and then kind of wrap things up.
Okay. Well,
Evelyn.
yeah. Let me answer a couple of those questions. We want you to find that enslaved person. Okay. So, so what you need to do is, to really help you, is to identify who that enslaver is. That can really help you. However, you don't have to do that. If you can provide proof, in a proof argument, that your person was probably enslaved. Like, for example, I have an ancestor, many ancestors who were born in Alabama, before 1811. 1811, they essentially kicked out any free people. So if you can find that your ancestor was born after that time and before the end of slavery, most likely they were enslaved. So all you have to do is to, and then you could, especially if you could say that their mother was born
Hmm.
before that time, because then, of course, your slave status followed the mother.
Hmm.
So if you can put together an argument that says, yeah, this person must have been enslaved
Hmm.
because they were identified as Negro. Um, they were here in a slave state, in one county where one of my ancestors were from only 3 free people of color lived there, but my ancestor lived there. They weren't on the 1860 census, they weren't on the 1870 census, I mean 1850, 1860, 18, you go back, they weren't there. So you put all these pieces together, aha, they got to be enslaved, and we take that
Yeah.
as evidence that they were enslaved.
Now I'm gonna share just this slide here as it comes up. I just wanted folks to know the team that you have, the board members that are supporting Sons and Daughters of the United States Middle Passage. Hopefully that slide will come up here. But you have a registrar and you have those who are supporting your organization and making sure everyone's paperwork is in order and they meet the criteria and things like that. And I know you really want to help people to have this connection. You talked earlier a little bit about kind of the purpose of the organization. And there's been a question that's kind of come up that I think might be, again, going back to your, I'm going to show your mission as well, but then there's the question that comes up, and I think it's worth, it's everyone's talking about it in the news. It's the big R word. And
Yeah.
so
Mm-hmm.
about reparations. And I just want to understand, what is Sons and Daughters of the United States Middle Passage position on using this application in relation to reparations? You've talked about the mission so far and things like that, but I've not heard you use that R word. What do you feel about that?
Okay, so the organization itself has not taken a formal position on reparations. However, I am actively involved in the reparations movement. Um, the reparations uh, is it's got to happen. Something's got to happen because
Something.
of the disparities between African Americans and people who identify as in the majority culture as white. Um, the wealth gap is it's unbelievable.
Right.
Okay, and that wealth gap is caused by 246 years of African Americans,
Okay. Right.
blood, sweat, and tears being taken away and given to other people. And so it's created this huge wealth gap. So something has to happen in order for us to not be a society where brown people are poor and people who are lighter complexion are rich. We can't continue this way. So something has to happen. And people have used reparations as a way to do that. So it is possible, especially now with California really talking about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
um, they're talking about a lineage based a reparations program, and um, you know if I live in New Jersey, if New Jersey does it, I'm ready to go because I've connected myself to 37 people, and I think all of the members can agree on one thing about reparations. We love the fact that it is encouraging people to connect to their enslaved ancestors. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It's encouraging people to do everything in our mission. And
Yeah.
so it's like music to our ears because it is doing that at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. I thank you so much. I apologize. Our time is up. This has been so good, y'all, to talk about these things. And I understand, I appreciate all the questions that have come in. We haven't been able to hit all of them. And so, if you too want to go online afterwards to Facebook or to any of the YouTube comments that are out there and provide any further explanation, everyone knows they can come. Actually, I forgot. You had on the slide with the group, the URL. So let me put that back up as we try and wrap up here,
Okay.
so people know where to go to get involved with the Sons and Daughters of the United States Middle Passage. I'm not a member yet. I'm going to be honest with everybody. I'm still working. I talked earlier. Oh, somebody asked earlier, are you related, Evelyn, to Janice? Have you guys, whether you're DNA cousins or somehow related? Because Janice was on earlier today, and
Yeah.
now she shows up on this list. But are
Yes.
you guys related at all?
No, well, I mean, not that I know of. I think Janice has found one Cinnamorgan or two.
Okay.
That may be the
Okay.
same, but
Yeah.
we may be. You never know. You never know.
Right. You never know. And so if you want to be a member of the Sons and Daughters of the United States Middle Passage and want to get started, here's the URL, sdusmp.org. For more information, you can contact Evelyn and Ruth through this info at sdusmp.org. We thank all of you for joining us today, for having this discussion. This is number 5. I told you I was going to go fast. It's so exciting. We've got one more presentation after this. We hope that you'll stick with us and join us as we honor our ancestors on Juneteenth by talking about our relationship to them and the work that we can do to connect with them, just like the work that Evelyn and Ruth are doing through the Sons and Daughters of the U.S. Middle Passage. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Evelyn and Ruth. Appreciate you being with us today.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us, Ruth.
Thank you so much.
All right.